Halo Infinite's 10-year plan revealed. When I saw this release yesterday, I was like, wow, seriously? Wow. There was so much planned for Halo Infinite before numerous development issues halted what could have been the most comprehensive Halo title in history. Yesterday, Mr. Rebs published images showing what was planned for Halo Infinite, including campaign DLC. Now on this channel, we support the Halo community, so if you do want to support Mr. Rebs, the man who is doing the best Halo journalism at the moment, he deeply cares about Halo just like us, go subscribe to Mr. Rebs. I'll have his channel at the top of the description. Now I have no idea where Mr. Rebs found this information, or more specifically, how he got this document, but my God, I searched everywhere on the internet and I even reverse image searched a lot of this information and I couldn't find it anywhere. So maybe an ex-developer has sent it to him. Either way, it is the first time that really shows what the plan for Halo Infinite was, including the Battle Royale, multiplayer launching early, planned campaign DLC, and even multiplayer additions such as Firefight. For years, we knew Halo Infinite was planned to have campaign DLC. The ending of the campaign was very open-ended. Sadly today, the future of that story has a massive question mark attached. Halo Studios very well may reboot everything now that they've swapped to the Unreal Engine. I hope they don't. I hope when they say there's multiple Halo games coming, they're working on both. So with that out of the way, let's jump into the first slide. It says Fall 2019, the planned release of Halo Infinite's multiplayer. First of all, this was the original launch date, and second, multiplayer was always planned to launch before the campaign. They actually did stick to this, with the multiplayer releasing 1 month before the campaign, celebrating Halo's 20th anniversary. The slide reads, "Greetings Spartan, welcome to the UNSC Spartan Academy. Join the program and see if you have what it takes to become a legend." Now when I have spoken about demographics, you, the people who are watching this video right now, around only 10% of my audience are under the age of 18. It is no surprise Halo has an older demographic of players, and with Halo being specifically brutal, at least in comparison to Call of Duty, there was a large planned emphasis around the academy, citing a safe and easy place for new players to join in. It also says hone your abilities using Spartan challenges. These became the weapon drills you see in the actual game, and honestly, a tutorial for new players is cool. It makes me think of Tutorial Island from RuneScape or the timed courses at the start of a Call of Duty game. Halo having its own version of that to teach new players the ropes is always good. Now alongside the first slide, Mr. Rebs shared 6 key dot points. These are the objectives of what Halo Infinite was supposed to accomplish, what Halo Infinite was supposed to be, and what their goals for the game were. The first dot point reads, "The Olympus story begins here in 2019. Now if you didn't know, Olympus was the code name for Halo Infinite. That is why when people mention Project Eker, it is significant. In Greek mythology, Mount Olympus is where the Greek gods would convene. Eker is very similar, with the official meaning being the assembly of the gods in the Garden of the Gods. It is the very parallel in Greek mythology to Mount Olympus. That is why when I talk about Project Eker being significant, Halo Studios and Microsoft have given the project a name equal to that of Halo Infinite. I'm sure once it's ready, we'll find out more. The second dot point reads, "Signs of the spiritual reboot begin here." As we all know, Halo Infinite was a soft reboot for the series, and we've seen that when the game came out. Halo Infinite was definitely the first and the beginning of a planned 10-year story 343 Industries had with the game. Ex-343 Industries employee Chris Lee, and he was spearheading Halo Infinite, he himself said that Halo Infinite was the start of a long-term plan to move the franchise forward within Infinite, as opposed to creating a new game every 3 years. Obviously, with the engine issues, the pandemic, and numerous leadership problems I've spoken about, this did not come to pass. It's important to note that I feel Microsoft leadership themselves pushing the horrible free-to-play model, the FOMO, the selling the color blue for $8, that did not help the game's longevity. Now, throughout Halo Infinite's history, and shout out to Sean W, if you don't know Sean, he's always covered the news with me over the first few years of Infinite's life cycle. He's actually made a recent return, by the way. He always spoke about the broader audience. Now, 343 Industries wanted that broader Fortnite audience. They did not want that core group of Halo fans, and Bonnie Ross even did an interview where she said that 343 Industries has to reckon with several factors that threaten to keep the franchise grounded. One of those factors was the very Halo fans themselves. The third dot point reads, "Multiplayer will be inviting and broaden the addressable market." The fourth reads the lowest barrier of entry to any Halo game. Of course, barrier to entry means on PC and free to play. In saying that, Halo Infinite launched with tens of millions of users checking the game out. Fans were happy with the launch product of both campaign and multiplayer, and the general gaming audience thought it was a return to form after Halo 5 Guardians. The problems arose when it took 6 to 9 months for the second season of Halo Infinite to release, and when it did, it had minimal content that included staple game modes that Bungie themselves launched with back in 2001. It seems clear now that one of their main objectives was to bring in new fans and move away from that core Halo audience. The broader market was the goal, and that's where the Battle Royale planned to fit into it. The final 2 points say multiplayer is our connection engine to bring people together and start positive word of mouth. The last one says what you do here matters, and it carries into the future. And by God, they were 100% correct. But not in the way they had hoped. Yes, multiplayer was well received, and yes, initially there was positive word of mouth about Halo Infinite, and yes, what they did here did matter, as the effects of these decisions they made all the way back in 2018 are still being felt in the Halo scene today. What 343 Industries and leadership didn't plan on was that it didn't end up being a positive memory, and the word of mouth being spread was not what they intended. No content, no follow-up campaign DLC, not even the Battle Royale came out, which had years of development time that could have been spent on other content. The design decisions they made in 2018 and 2019 in regards to the challenge system, the coating system, and the armor core system, all of those money-hungry milking mechanisms they implemented were so ingrained into the very core of Halo Infinite that even after 3 years, developers who have been set the impossible task of fixing said issues still have lingering aspects that just can't be resolved. Hell, the technical debt on Halo Infinite was so bad, and it is to this day, that some fixes that the developers make to Halo Infinite, every single new update that comes to the game, it reverts and creates the same bugs again. It is that bad. Ultimately, to Halo Studios, I hope the lesson is learned that yes, what the developers do, especially early on, matters a lot. Do not release a game that isn't ready, and what's even more important is to not take shortcuts to release the game by a deadline if it means future changes, future updates, are almost impossible to make. The dot point finishes by saying that releasing Halo Infinite's multiplayer early is meaningful early access to the game, a game they will play for years. All I'm going to say about this is Microsoft are a multi-billion-dollar company, if not trillion at this point. Everything they do is done with a purpose. Everything is psychologically done to maximize profits. It's not personal in any way, it's just a business trying to capitalize on the market. Let's move on. The next slide talks about content. Mr. Rebs went on to say that multiple large-scale game modes were planned for Halo Infinite, including the Battle Royale and even Warzone. Halo 5's flagship mode was also slated to release on the game before the development woes neutered any hopes of large-scale content releasing on the game. The Crusher, which I've spoken about as a replacement to the Hunters, would have been in this planned Warzone game mode, probably as a mini-boss. I know you guys in the comments are going to say this a lot, but Halo 5 Warzone would have been a very welcome addition. The skill-based matchmaking was very fair on it. You could play with your friends, which was awesome. And on the Battle Royale side of things, there was so much time sunk into that game mode. Imagine if that time was spent elsewhere. What type of multiplayer content could have released on Halo Infinite? Moving on to the next slide, this was very interesting to me. It says the ring awaits. Begin a new adventure with Master Chief and explore a world unlike any you have ever experienced. It says below it, use Master Chief's armor in Arena. Here's something juicy that I particularly noticed. First of all, Xbox Scarlet was the initial codename for the Series X, but it seems like Master Chief was really planned to be exploring a fully fleshed out open world. Sadly, this did not come to pass, and what actually shipped was a bare bones version of the original goal. What I found interesting, Master Chief's armor was always planned to be equipable in multiplayer. It seems like the max rank hero reward was always going to be earnable in some form, even all the way back in 2018. The slide said this was planned for release in 2020. The biggest part about this slide, and some of you may have noticed this already, it says Rex. Warzone was definitely planned for Halo Infinite as a large content add-on. It's no surprise considering Rec Packs sold really well on Halo 5 Guardians, so it makes sense they wanted to bring them back. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the Rec weaponry turned into the campaign guns that we got that were unlockable from the high value targets scattered throughout the ring. The next slide is where this goes into great detail. Did anyone say campaign DLC? Fall 2020 2021, 2 years after the planned launch in 2019, introduced Atriox's reign. You are the only thing standing in the way of Atriox's master plan to dominate the galaxy. Stop him from using the ring and save humanity once more. Crush Atriox's warlords one by one to reach the seat of his power, the Bastion. I got chills when I first read this. It honestly sounds amazing. Atriox has a plan to control the ring and the entire galaxy, a story beat that I hope is explored in future. This would directly continue the end of Halo Infinite's campaign and would probably explain the Endless in more detail. The slide goes on to say, Warlords Rise. The new Warlord system comes to the open world. Firefight was also planned to launch 2 years after the game came out. Ironically, this is exactly what happened on the actual version of Halo Infinite, which makes me think it was always the plan to drip feed content, which really sucks. Now in Halo lore, and I'm no hidden Xperia, but I'm just gonna say this, there are 2 references to the Bastion. The first Bastion was a shield world, designated 0983. This shield world was built to resemble Earth, and it acted as the Librarian's secret laboratory. The second reference of Bastion, and probably isn't what was going to be referenced, the Bastion of Brutes was a major Covenant base used on Delta Halo during the events of Halo 2 near the second control room, basically where the Scarab was parked. Knowing 343 Industries, the first description of the Bastion in my eyes is the correct one. It also might actually explain where Atriox would go after he finds and releases the Endless. At this point, Mr. Reb cited why the 10-year plan was ultimately scrapped for Halo Infinite, and it's exactly what you'd expect. First and foremost, the severe leadership issues, especially with Chris Lee. He left the studio after the first reveal of Halo Infinite's campaign. There was also the disconnect between the leadership of both Microsoft and 343 and the developers who work there day to day. The biggest reason of all was workflow, how long it took to create the content in the Slipspace engine. This was compounded by the stupid contract system that meant as a developer, once they had finally learnt how to use the Slipspace engine, which was not intuitive at all, their contract was nearly over. This meant they had little time to use the skills they had spent developing over the last 6 to 12 months. It just wasn't good. In saying that, that's where the Unreal Engine comes in. It is much easier now for a developer to come in and start work immediately, as Unreal Engine is a staple in game dev scene. It also meant that once the Unreal Engine became the main engine of Halo projects going forward, a majority of the content planned for Halo Infinite was shelved. Now personally, I think some assets will be reused and reutilized in future projects. It would just save game dev time, so I think that will happen. What I found most interesting was just how much campaign DLC was planned, and it's my hope this story is continued as 343 Industries, who are now Halo Studios, already have a story in mind of where the broader narrative should go next. Multiplayer wise, there are so many cool Halo game modes that were planned. The most notable that you need to keep in mind, and I think will be revealed in future, is Project Eker. To say Halo Infinite has had a colorful history is the understatement of the century. There was so many plans for this game to be the Halo game, the Halo franchise title. There was even plans to have a universal narrative, highly systemic, deeply replayable, featuring connections to Legacy with social hooks, an evergreen campaign, as well as yearly updates. With all of that said, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments on everything Mr. Reb shared with the Halo community. Go subscribe to the man as he's doing great work. There is a lot to unpack here and more might come out in future, so stay tuned. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys later.